The T-64 is a Soviet second-generation main battle tank introduced in the early 1960s. It was a more advanced counterpart to the T-62. The T-64 served tank divisions, while the T-62 supported infantry in motorized rifle divisions. It introduced a number of advanced features including composite armor, and compact engine and transmission, and a smoothbore 125 mm gun equipped with an autoloader to allow the crew to be reduced 3 so the tank could be smaller and lighter. In spite of being armed and armored like a heavy tank, the T-64 weighed only 38 tons. These features made the T-64 expensive to build, significantly higher than previous generations of Soviet tanks. This was especially true of the power pack. Several proposals were made to improve the T-64 with new engines. The chief designer Alexander Morozov's political power in Moscow kept the design in production in spite of any concerns about price. This led to the T-72 being designed as an emergency design, only to be produced in the case of a war. But its 40% lower price led to it entering production in spite of Morozov's objections. Although the T-62 and the famous T-72 would see much wider use and generally more development, it was the T-64 that formed the basis of subsequent modern Soviet tank designs, such as the T-80. Overview. The T-64 was conceived in Kharkiv, Ukraine as the next-generation main battle tank by Alexander A. Morozov, the designer of the T-54. A revolutionary feature of the T-64 is the incorporation of an automatic loader for its 125 mm gun, allowing one crew member's position to be omitted and helping to keep the size and weight of the tank down. Tank troopers would joke that the designers had finally caught up with their unofficial hymn, Three Tankers. The song had been written to commemorate the crewmen fighting in the Battle of Kharkhin Gol in 3-man BT-5 tanks in 1939. The T-64 also pioneered other Soviet tank technology. The T-64A model of 1967 introduced the 125 mm smoothbore gun, and the T-64B of 1976 would be able to fire a guided anti-tank missile through its gun barrel. The T-64 design was further developed by LKZ as the gas turbine-powered T-80 main battle tank. The turret of the T-64B would be used in the improved T-80U and T-80UD, and an advanced version of its diesel engine would power the T-80UD and T-84 tanks built in Ukraine. The T-64 would only be used by the Soviet Army and never exported, unlike the T-54 55ths. The tank equipped elite and regular formations in Eastern Europe and elsewhere, the T-64A model being first deployed with East Germany's group of Soviet forces in Germany in 1976, and some time later in Hungary's southern group of forces. By 1981, the improved T-64B began to be deployed in East Germany and later in Hungary. While it was believed that the T-64 was only reserved for elite units, it was also used by much lower non-ready formations, for example, the Odessa Military District's 14th Army. With the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, T-64 tanks remained in the arsenals of Russia, Ukraine, Belarus and Uzbekistan. Mid-2014, slightly fewer than 2,000 of the former Soviet infantry of T-64 tanks are in service with the military of Ukraine and about 4,000 are out of service and awaiting destruction in Russia. Development history. the initial requirement. Recognizing that the T-55, T-62 lineage had finally exhausted its potential for improvement, the USSR embarked on the development of an entirely new tank design that could defeat new Western tanks like the British Chieftain and resist new Western anti-tank weapons. Object 430 studies from the design of a new battle tank started as early as 1951. The KB-60M team was formed at the Kharkiv Design Bureau of the Kharkiv Transport Machine Building Factory No. 75, named for Malyshev by engineers coming back from Nizhny Tagil, with Morozov at its head. A project named Object 430 gave birth to 3 prototypes, which were tested in Kubinka in 1958. Those vehicles showed characteristics that were going to radically change the design of battle tanks on this side of the Iron Curtain. For the first time, an extremely compact opposed piston engine was used, the 40D, designed by the plant's engine design team. The transmission system comprised 2 lateral gears on each side of the engine. Those 2 innovations yielded a very short engine compartment with the opening located beneath the turret. The engine compartment volume was almost half that of the T-54. An improved cooling system and a new lightweight suspension was fitted, featuring hollow metallic wheels of a small diameter and caterpillar tracks with rubber joints. The tank would be armed with the D-540S and frontal armor of 120 mm. As it did not present a clear superiority in terms of combat characteristics when compared to the T-55, which was entering active service, Morozov decided that production was not yet ready given the project's drawbacks. However, studies conducted on the Object 430U, featuring a 122 mm gun and 160 mm of armor, demonstrated that the tank had the potential to fit the firepower and armor of a heavy tank onto a medium tank chassis. A new project was consequently started, Object 432. The gun fitted on this new tank was a powerful 115 mm D-68. This was a potentially risky decision to replace the human loader by an electro-hydraulic automatic system. Since the technology was new to Russian designers, a crew was reduced to 3, which allowed an important reduction in internal volume and external visible silhouette, and consequently in weight, from 36 tons to 30.5 tons. The height dropped by 76 mm. However, the arrival of the British 105 mm L7 gun and the US M68 variant of it, fitted to the Centurion and M60 tanks, forced the team to undertake another audacious premiere with the adoption of composite armor. A recently created process was called K-combination by Western armies. This protection consisted of an aluminium alloy layer between 2 high-strength steel layers. As a consequence, the weight of the prototype rose eventually to 34 tons. But, as the engine was now a 700 horsepower 5 TDF, its mobility remained excellent, far superior to the active T-62. The Object 432 was ready in September 1962 and production started in October 1963 in the Kharkiv plant. On the 30th of December 1966, it entered service as the T-64, T-64A. Even as the first T-64s were rolling off the assembly lines, the design team was working on a new version, named Object 434. Which would allow it to maintain firepower superiority. The brand new and very powerful 125 mm D81T gun for the Perm Weapons Factory was fitted to the tank. This gun was merely a scaled-up version of the 115 mm smoothbore cannon from the T-62. The larger size of the 125 mm ammunition meant that less could be carried inside the T-64, and with a fourth crewman loader taking up space as well, the tank would only have a 25-round capacity. This was unacceptably low for the Soviet designers, but strict dimensional parameters forbade them from enlarging the tank to increase interior space. The solution was to replace the human loader with a mechanical autoloader, cutting the crew to 3 and marking the first use of autoloaders in a Soviet MBT. The 6CT's 10 autoloader has 28 rounds and can fire 8 shots per minute. The stabilizer, a 2E23, was coupled to the new TPD-2-1 sight. Night driving was also adapted with the new TPN-143A periscope, which would benefit from the illumination of a powerful infrared L2G projector, fitted on the left side of the gun. The shielding was improved with fiberglass replacing the aluminium alloy in the armor, and small spring-mounted plates fitted along the mudguards, to cover the top of the suspension and the side tanks. They were, however, extremely fragile and were often removed. Some small storage spaces were created along the turret with a compartment on the right and 3 boxes on the front left. Snorkels were mounted on the rear of the turret. ANBC protection system was fitted and the hatches were widened. Prototypes were tested in 1966 and 1967 and, as production began after the 600th T-64, it entered service in the Soviet Army under the designation T-64A. Chief Engineer Morozov was awarded the Lenin Prize for this model's success. Designed for elite troops, the T-64A was constantly updated as available equipment was improved. After only 3 years in service, a first modernization occurred, regarding fire control, by replacing the sights with the TPD-2-49-day sight with an optical coincidence rangefinder and a TPN-14923 night sight, and stabilization by mounting a 2E26 system. The radio by mounting AR-123M, night vision with a TBN-4PA for the driver and a TNP-165A for the tank leader. His battle post was transformed by mounting a small stabilized turret with an anti-aircraft NSVT 12.7mm x 108 machine gun, electrically guided through an optical PZU-5 sight, and fed with 300 rounds. It could be used from within the tank so that the tank leader could avoid being exposed. The possibility of mounting a KMT-6 anti-mine system was also added. A derived version appeared at the same time, designed for the commanding officer and named T-64AK. It comprised AR-130M radio with a 10 meters telescopic antenna, which could be used only in a static position as it required shrouds, an artillery aiming circle PAB-2AM and TNA-3 navigation station. All of these could be powered by an auxiliary gasoline-fired generator. In 1976, the weapons system was improved by mounting a D-81TM, stabilized by a 2E28M2, supplied by an automatic 6ET's 10M. The night sight was replaced by a TNPA-65, and the engine could accept different fuels, including diesel fuel, kerosene or gasoline. The production, first carried on the B variant, stopped in 1980, but the majority of T-64s were still modernized after 1981, by mounting a 6-smoke grenade launcher 81mm 902A on each side of the gun, and by replacing the gill plates by a rubber skirt for a longer life. Some of them seem to have been fitted after 1985 with reactive bricks, or even with laser TPD-K1 telemeters instead of the optical TPD T2-49 optical coincidence rangefinder. Almost all T-64s were modernized into T-64R between 1977 and 1981 by reorganizing external storage and snorkels, similar to the T-64A. T-64B. The design team was carrying on its work on new versions. Problems with the setup of the 5TDF engine occurred as the local production capacity was proven to be insufficient against a production done in 3 factories. From 1961, an alternative to the Obect 432 was studied, with 12-volt cylinder V45 engine, the Obect 436. 3 prototypes were tested in 1966 in the Chelyabinsk factory. The order to develop a model derived from the 434 with the same engine gave the Obect 438, later renamed as Obect 439. 4 tanks of this type were built and tested in 1969, which showed the same mobility as the production version, but mass production was not started. They served, however, as a basis from the design of the T-72 engine compartment. In the beginning of the 1970s, the design team was trying to improve the tank further. The T-64A2M study in 1973, with its more powerful engine and its reinforced turret, served as a basis for 2 projects. Obect 476 with a 6DD 1000 horsepower engine, which served as a model for the T-80 combat compartment. Obect 447, which featured a new fire control with a laser delimiter, and which was able to fire missiles through the gun. For the latter, the order was given to start its production under the name T-64B, as well as a derived version, the Obect 437, without the missile guidance system for cost reasons. The latter was almost twice as much produced under the designation T-64B1. On 3 September 1976, the T-64B and the T-64B1 were declared good for the service, featuring the improved D-81 terameters gun with a 2E26M stabilizer, a 6CTs-40 loader and a 1A33 fire control, including a 1V517 ballistic calculator, a 1G21 sight with laser telemetry, a 1B11 crosswind sensor. Its forward capacity reaches 1.8 meters without equipment. The T-64B had the ability to fire the new 9M112 Cobra radio-guided missile. The vehicle then carries 8 missiles and 28 shells. The missile control system is mounted in front of the tank leader small turret and has many changes. The T-64B1 carries only 37 shells and has 2007.62 mm rounds, against 1,250 for the T-64B. They were modernized in 1981 by the replacement of the gun by a 2A46M1, the stabilizer by a 2E42, and the mounting of a 902 at EUCHA-1 smoke grenade launcher in 2 groups of 4 on each side of the gun. 2 command versions are realized, very similar to the T-64AK, the T-64BK and the T-64B1K. The decision in October 1979 to start the production of the 6DD engine, and its great similarity with the 5TDF engine, allowed after some study to fit it in versions B and B1, but also A and AK, yielding the new models T-64AM, T-64AKM, T-64BM and T-64BAM, entering service in 1983. The production ended in 1987 for all versions. The total production has reached almost 13,000. Modernizations in Ukraine. After the dissolution of the USSR, Ukraine carried on the development of T-64 modernization. As the original and main factory was in this country, two different upgrade packages were developed in 1999: T-64B M2 with a 5.7D FM 850 HP engine, a new 1A43U fire control, a new 6ET's 43 loader, and the possibility to fire the 9M119 missile. T-64U, which integrated on top the 1A45 fire control, PNK4SU and TKN4S optics for the tank commander, and PZU7 for the AA machine gun. The tank leader is then able to drive the tank and to use the gun directly if needed. Contact 5 armor added few prototypes built. The two variants are also protected by Contact 5 modular reactive armor, able to resist kinetic energy projectiles, as opposed to the first models which were efficient only against heat-shaped charge ammunition. Those two variants could also be remotorized with the 60D F1000 horsepower engine. T-64B MBULAT Ukrainian Army on use modernization. The designs incorporate the knife reactive armor that offers better performance dealing with tandem warheads than Russian Contact 5. New Ukrainian-made 125mm gun KBA-3 T01K01DR night sight and capable to fire the Ukrainian-made missile combat with tandem warhead. In 2010, the Kharkiv Malyshev factory upgraded 10 T-64B tanks to T-64BM bullet standard, and a further 19 will be delivered in 2011. These T-64B tanks were originally produced at Kharkiv in 1980. These 29 tanks are being upgraded under a 200 million hryvnias contract signed in April 2009. As of October 2011, Ukrainian Army has 76 T-64BM bullet in service. According to Konstantin Isyuk, the T-64BM bullet is armored to the level of modern tanks. They have knife reactive armor and the Vata active defense system. The T-64BM bullet weighs 45 tons, and with its 850 horsepower 5 TDFM multi-fuel diesel engine can do 70 km/h and has a range of 385 km. It retains the 125mm smoothbore gun with an autoloader for 28 rounds, some of which can be guided missiles. It has a 12.7mm AA machine gun, and a 7.62mm coaxial machine gun. Production history. Different sources differ on the initial production date of the tank, that is set between 1963 and 1967. However, it is normally agreed that the T-64 formally entered service with the Army in 1967 and was publicly revealed in 1970. The T-64 was KMDB's high-technology offering, intended to replace the IS-3 and T-10 heavy tanks in independent tank battalions. Meanwhile, the T-72 was intended to supersede the T-55 and T-62 in equipping the bulk of the Soviet tank and mechanized forces, as well as for export partners and East Bloc satellite states. It introduced a new autoloader, which is still used on all T-64s currently in service, as well as all variants of the T-80 except the Ukrainian T-84-120. The T-64 prototypes had the same 115mm smoothbore gun as the T-62. The ones put in full-scale production had the 125mm gun. While the T-64 was the superior tank, it was more expensive and physically complex, and was produced in smaller numbers. The T-72 is mechanically simpler and easier to service in the field, while it is not as well protected, and its manufacturing process is correspondingly simpler. In light of Soviet doctrine, the superior T-64s were kept ready and reserved for the most important mission, a potential outbreak of a war in Europe. In Soviet times, T-64 was mostly in service with units stationed in East Germany. No T-64s were exported. Many T-64s ended up in Russian and Ukrainian service after the breakup of the Soviet Union. Models Object 430 prototype with D10T 100mm gun, 120mm armor, 4 TPD 580 horsepower engine, 36 tons. Object 430U project, equipped with a 122mm gun and 160mm of armor. T-64 or Object 432 prototype with a D-68 115mm gun, then initial production version with the same features. About 600 tanks produced. T-64R or Object 432R, redesigned between 1977 and 1981, with external gear from the T-64A but still with the 115mm gun. T-64A or Object 434 to 125mm gun, GIL armor skirts, a modified sight and suspension on the fourth road wheel. T-64T experimental version with a GTD3TL 700 horsepower gas turbine. Object 436 alternative version of Object 432 with a V45 engine. 3 built. Object 438 and Object 439. Object 434 with V45 diesel engine. T-64AK or Object 446 command version, with AR-130M radio and its 10 meters telescoping antenna, a TNA-3 navigation system, without anti-aircraft machine gun, carrying 38 rounds of main gun ammunition. Object 447 prototype of the T-64B, basically a T-64A fitted with the 9K112 Cobra system and A1G21 gun sight. This is the T-64A displayed in the Kiev Museum. T-64B or Object 447A, fitted with redesigned armor, 1A33 fire control system, 9K112-1 Cobra ATGM system, TPN-149-3 sight, 2A46-2 gun, 2E26M stabilizer and 6 CTs-40 loader. Later BV models have more modern systems, 1A33-1, TPN-3-49, 2E42 and a 2A46M1 gun. From 1985 the T-64B was fitted with stronger glacis armor. Older tanks were upgraded with a 16mm armor plate. Tanks equipped with the 1000 horsepower 6DT engine are known as T-64BM. T-64BV features Contact 1 reactive armor and 281mm smoke grenade launchers on the left of the turret. T-64BM2 or Object 447AM2 Contact 5 reactive armor, rubber protection skirts, 1A43U fire control, 6 CTs-43 loader and able to fire the 9K119 missile, 5 TDF M850 horsepower engine. T-64U BM bullet or Object 447AM1 Ukrainian modernization, bringing the T-64B to the standard of the T-84. fitted with nose reactive armor, 9K120 reflex missile, 1A45 Atish fire control, TKN-4S commander's sight, PZU-7 anti-aircraft machine gun sight, TPN-4E Iran-E night vision, 6DDF 1000 HP engine. T-64B1 or Object 437, same as the B without the fire control system, carrying 37 shells. T-64B1M, T-64 bar equipped with the 1000 HP 6DT engine. T-64BK and T-64B1K or Object 446B command versions, with an R130M radio and its 10M telescoping antenna, a TNA-3 navigation system, and AB-1P-30 APU without anti-aircraft machine gun, carrying 28 shells. Object 476 5 prototypes with a 6DDF engine. Prototypes for THOUD development. BREM-64 or Object 447T armored recovery vehicle with a light 2.5-TONNE crane, dozer blade, tow bars, welding equipment, etc. Only a small number was built. T-55-64 heavily upgraded T-55 with the complete hull and chassis of the T-64, fitted with Contact 1 era prototype. T-80 and T-84 further developments of the T-64. Modernizations. T-64 1977 to 1981 brought to the T-64R standard. Reorganization of external equipment as on the T-64A. T-64A AK 1972 redesign, fire control improvement, inclusion of the NSVT machine gun on an electrical turret, R123M radio, 1975 redesign, new 2E28M stabilizer, 6ET's 10M loader, multi-fuel engine, 2A46-1 gun and TNPA-65 night vision, 1981 redesign, 2 sets of 6 902A smoke grenade launchers, rubber skirts on the suspension instead of the gill protection, 1983 T-64AM, T-64AKM. Some tanks were equipped with the 6DDF engine during maintenance. T-64B, B1, BK, B1K 1981 redesign, 2 sets of full 902B2 smoke grenade launchers, 2A26M1 gun. 1983 T-64BM, T-64B1M, T-64BMK and T-64B1MK. Some tanks were equipped with the 6DDF engine during maintenance. 1985 T-64BV, T-64BV1, T-64BVK and T-64BV1K, with contact reactive armor, smoke grenade launchers on the left of the turret. BM Bullet, T-64 modernization by the Malyshev factory in Ukraine. Variants BMPV-64 heavy infantry fighting vehicle, based on the chassis of the T-64 but with a completely redesigned hull with a single entry hatch in the rear. Armament consists of a remote-controlled 30mm gun. Combat weight is 34.5 tons. The first prototype was ready in 2005. BTRV-64 similar APC version, UMBP-64 modified version that will serve as the basis for several specialized vehicles, including a fire support vehicle, an ambulance and an air defense vehicle. BMPTK-64. This variant is not tracked but has a new suspension with 4 axles, similar to the Soviet BTR series. The vehicle is powered by a 5TDFA-700 engine and has a combat weight of 17.7 tons. It is fitted with ARCWS and can transport 3+8 men. Prototype only. Batu fast combat engineering vehicle with the engine, lower hull and small road wheels. Suspension of the T-64. The 40-ton tractor sports a very large, all-axis adjustable V-shaped hydraulic dozer blade at the front, a single soil ripper spike at the rear and a 2-ton crane on the top. A crew compartment holds 8 persons. The highly capable Batu was designed to replace the old T-54, a T-based Bat-M. The WARPAC Allies received only small numbers due to its high price, and the old and new vehicles served alongside during the late Cold War. UMR-64 Ukrainian development using surplus T-64s to create a heavy APC IFV design, which in turn is intended as the basis of a new family of combat and support vehicles. The basic conversion includes moving the engine compartment forward, and at the same time removing the turret and normal crew compartment. This allows the installation of any one of 15 different functional modules, weighing up to 22 tons. One resulting option is the heavy IFV, designated BMP-64E, which combines accommodation for up to 10 troops with a remote weapons system. The heavy APC version is designated the BTR-64E, and can not only carry more troops but comes with large armor double hatches at the rear for rapid loading and disembarkation. Other options include a universal supplies carrier, a highly secure command and staff car with a weight up to 41 tons, and a 120mm mortar carrier. The Kharkiv armor repair plant is behind the project. Current status of the program is unclear as of early 2014.